4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Good afternoon, Misfits. We haven't done one of those, right? The afternoon Misfits. So I've been sick for the past few days. I was supposed to come on Wednesday. I was supposed to come on Friday. I was out of it. I was completely blitzed. I actually felt like I was getting sick on Tuesday, and I went out with my buddy to the Spurs game. And I don't know if you know this, but you can actually override being sick by being drunk. It's a trick that only like absolute degenerates like know. But either way, it worked. But when you wake up the next day, you're fucked. So I basically slept for 2 days straight, and I told you to get off the internet, but yet here we are. So in my chat, on the edge brings up a very good point. I just came back and I was like, you know what? I've been off the internet for 4 days because like I was sick, and I was like, I don't have any energy to actually argue with anybody, because when you're really like weak, like physically weak, you don't want to argue with people. So when I woke up today feeling, I don't know, 80%, I was like, yeah, you know what, dude? Get off the internet. Get off the fucking internet. I was just out in nature all morning. I woke up at 3:30 in the morning. Went out to the blind, the lease that I rent, and I was there probably from like 4:45 until about 9:45, like 5 hours, just sitting in this tiny little wooden box. And the whole time I'm like sitting there, I'm like, you know what, dude? I just been off the internet for like, I don't know what, 4 days, which seems like an eternity now because we all live there. And I was like, oh man, when I'm driving home, I was like, I gotta let everybody know, get off the fucking internet. When I say get off the internet, though, I don't mean get off the internet per se. I don't mean get off your phone, get off the information superhighway that you have. I mean, get off of the drama, get off of the engagement, get off of the dopamine hit. Right? But as everybody knows, we've been trying to hit this creator program on Rumble, and I was really hoping that we would like, like blast it out in the first 3 weeks, but we didn't. So I was like, all right, I got 3 hours left. I gotta jump on today. I'm gonna jump on Monday and Tuesday, and then I gotta get back to work. I actually have multiple jobs lined up. I told you guys that, it's been a slow month. The holidays are already a slow month, but I just locked down a job for the beginning of January, and I got a job starting in late January, early February. So I just wanted to make sure I got these hours in. So while it might sound hypocritical, get off the internet, we're gonna do the internet anyway. So I have been gone off the internet. I have not looked at it. I have not checked it. I have not done anything. I slept the entire day of Christmas. Christmas Eve, I barely checked. I didn't check really. Like I literally I probably popped in like 2 times for 30 seconds each. And then yesterday was the day after Christmas. So today I went hunting. I don't know what's going on. It's only been what, 72 hours? But I wanted to do this with you, like what I miss. All right, so let's see. Um, well, the U.S. launches strikes against Islamic State in Nigeria. Okay, that's good. Travis Kelce addresses retirement question. Who cares? Kennedy Center president demands $1 million from musician who canceled. We'll get to that. All right, but let's go to this first. Let's keep everybody engaged. All right, I have not looked at X in 4 days since Tuesday night. So I have no idea what's going on. Right? And I thought it would be a good thing to like experience this together. Like if you take 4 days off the internet, like what would be the reaction from somebody that just like showed back up and was like, oh, all right, so we're 40, I think that's trillion, yeah, $40 trillion in debt. Why are we building ballrooms? Well, you don't have to pay for that ballroom. So that's not adding to the debt. This appears to be somebody who is bitching about Donald Trump paying for something for the first time since any other president. Yeah, okay, well, fuck that guy. Let's see. Oh, Candace Owens. You know, I said I'm not talking about Candace Owens unless it's useful. Like, but I just took one quick peek at this, and I have a feeling she's about to defend radical Islam. Let's see. No matter how hard the GOP tries to make radical Islam happen, the base doesn't care about it. We are way more concerned about Israel. Oh, good. You can deny reality and scream about Tucker, but the part. Oh, see how she just. All right, guys. I promise you, I'm doing this blind. Tucker, radical Islam, Candace Owens has equated these two things, right? That should tell you something. You can deny reality and scream about Tucker, but the party can no longer be governed by those who refuse to acknowledge the Zionist elephant in the room. Okay. So apparently, Candace Owens, the woman who has gotten everything wrong in the past 3 months, is saying no matter how hard the GOP tries to make radical Islam happen. All right, so the GOP, the grand old party / the Republican Party, is trying to make radical Islam happen. The base doesn't care about it. Okay. So radical Islam has been happening for 3,000 years. And if we were to go with the, I would say, like modern terrorist state of radical jihadis, then we would probably start somewhere around like ISIS or Al Qaeda. All right, so 40 years. All right, 40 years, if you look at it as the modern terrorist state of like jihad. Does that make sense? So we have the World Trade Centers in 2001. We have the 1996 Trade Center. We have ISIS cutting off journalists' heads in front of the world. We have recently al-Baghdadi, we have Soleimani, we have Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden, Yasser Arafat, right? And fun fact, Yasser Arafat, president of Palestine, state that didn't exist. They just gave him that title. We have all of this, like, you know, political global jihad against the West, which is an Islamic terrorist political ideology. We have that. But Candace Owens, the prophet, right? She's saying no matter how hard the GOP tries to make that happen, the base doesn't care about it. Okay. You know what? Fair. Fair enough. You don't care? Great. It cares about you. By the way, she's wrong. Based on the exit polling from Turning Point America Fest, it absolutely is something that's on everybody's mind. Speaking of, Vishbura, Myron Gaines is infinitely more American than Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro. You know what the funny thing is if you look at like historically where you have a threat, right? If you have a threat against the West, the threat always tells you that the other thing is the actual threat, right? So like if you have the, you know, Nazi regime, right? They're going to tell you that, you know, capitalism and, you know, free market economies, that they're the threat, right? Stalin, same way, right? They're going to be like, hey, the thing that, the thing that is the actual threat is the thing that's making you prosperous. The thing that is the actual threat is it's the Jews. It's the Zionists, right? It's the Judeo-Christian principles that make up the Western values of civilization based on Greco-Roman antiquity and a principle that all men are created equal, right? That's always the threat from people that are pushing some type of authoritarianism, some type of totalitarianism. So when I see Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson saying that like the real threat is Zionism, I'm like, all right, well, let's break this down. Like, what is Zionism? Right? Like, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, right? Like, Zionism has its flaws, right? Because it is a nationalist ideology, right, based off of a Jewish ethno-state. If you really break it down. But what have they done with that ideology, right? Like the Jews, like the Israelis, the Israeli government, the Israeli state. They've made a state where Arabs make up 20% of the population. They've put Arabs on their Supreme Court, in their government. They haven't expanded at all. They've kept their sovereignty, right, in their tiny little land. And they've conceded on 5 different wars that were rejected by the people that are occupying the same land. So, if you were to tell me that, let's say, a constitutional republic was a threat, like the American system, if you were to say a constitutional republic is the biggest threat, right? But Islam, it's not. Well, you'd have to look at what has America produced and what has Islam produced. Because you start off in, I don't know, like 1950 something, with, shit, I think it was like 20 something states. Now you have 55, right? So you have an expansionist ideology that has overtaken and created like 30 something states. It's expanded by like 200%, 150%. And you say that Israel, the Jewish ethno state, is the one that's doing that. And I'm like, okay, show your work. Like, Israel hasn't done any of that. And then you say, okay, well, Arabs didn't, or Islam didn't have any problem with America until Israel was created. Okay, show your work, right? You have the Ottoman Empire, you have the Barbary Pirates, you have Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, literally the founders of the Republic which reached out to the leaders of the Barbary Pirates at the Ottoman Empire, and they were like, "Hey, why are you enslaving our people? Why are you taking our ships, killing Americans?" And the leaders at the time of the Arab, Islamic, um, I would say authoritarian Ottoman Empire were like, "Well, because we can, right? The Ottoman Empire, the Quran says we can, right? You're all infidels." So then Thomas Jefferson was like, "Okay, well, we're gonna fuck you up," right? And then we did, right? We had a conflict where we, threw our dick on the table. So that whole time, Israel was not created at the time of the modern nation state of Israel. Yet Israel is being blamed for all the problems that we have in America when the constant theme, right? The never-ending theme is radical Islam slash Islam, right? It's always the motherfucker in the room, right? It's always the guy in the room that's starting shit. So my question for Candace, Tucker, Sank, Anna Kasparian, all of them, is when does the common denominator actually become common? Right? Because I haven't seen Israel do anything. Right? Like, this is why they constantly focus on the USS Liberty, right? They talk about the USS Liberty like it's World War II, like where it's like, oh my god, I can't believe that Israel attacked a ship. And if you really look into it, right, like Israel did fire on an American ship that was inside of Israeli borders, didn't announce that it was supposed to be there, like, and according to all reports, naval records on the Israeli side and the American side, they were like, oh, well, we didn't know that it was an American ship. So they basically shot the hell out of it. Cool. All right. So if the worst case scenario is true and Israel was just like, I know you're Americans and I'm going to fuck you up anyway, you can always go back to the Barbary Pirates who attacked all the ships back in the I think it was 1790, where they knew that we had American ships with Americans in the Mediterranean Sea trying to go through that trade route, and they killed us on purpose. What about the German army, who obviously, right, killed American soldiers when we joined the Allies in World War II? So, like, what are we doing here? Like, are we saying that if you go back and you find a country that killed Americans on purpose? Now, I'm using their example, where their example is Israel killed 100 Americans on purpose, right? Israel says no. Americans say no. But even if they did, right? Why do we do this? Why do we say Israel, the modern nation state of Israel, killed Americans, so they're not an ally? What about Afghanistan, right? Does anybody remember the 13 service members that died at Abbey Gate? Like, are we really upset at Afghanistan right now? What about Qatar? Right? Qatar is a nation that has, I don't know, like fucking, what is it, like 800,000 people or something like that? They apparently donate um, $2 billion over the past, I think it's like 10 years, to our universities. and nobody bats an eye. They have contracts with the United States. They have a military base there. They're, trying to give planes to the president of the United States. Nobody cares. But if Israel, right, has a contract with the United States where they go, hey, let's do a strategic partnership for military allyship. Let's go ahead and let's call Israel is controlling the United States of America. They buy our congressman. What about AIPAC, right? The American Israeli Political Action Committee. There's another political action committee that you just add a letter, right? AIPAC, right? The Arab American Political Action Committee. What about the National Association of Realtors? What about the Political Action Committee for the pharmaceutical industry? What about et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Right? What is going on where we have, not we, but some people have this obsession with blaming the Jews, Israel, for everything? Israel, the country, has been a country for about 80 years, right? But the Jews have been blamed for everything for 3,000 years. So when I look at this, right, no matter how hard the GOP tries to make radical Islam happen, the base doesn't care about it. We are way more concerned about Israel. My first question is why? Right? Because I just laid out the case as to why radical Islam is a much bigger threat, right? Based on historical fact, based on the amount of expansion that they have, based off of the influence they have over our institutions, right? I mean, what is it? 200? Is it 200 million or is it 2 billion? Can't remember. Either way, that's a lot over the past 10 years to our college institutions, right? Either way, they are spending an exorbitant amount of money in America to try to influence the ideology of Americans. I mean, do you think it's a coincidence that Qatar had Emily Saves America, Rob Smith, and like a bunch of other influencers over there, and they started promoting like Qatar as this great place to live? Emily Saves America is a young, single, I would argue, promiscuous, like, or at least, independent woman. Rob Smith is a gay man. Neither of them have rights in Qatar. I talked to the opposition leader to Qatar, and he confirmed that if they were there on their own without influencer status, they would be put into military camps or raped / killed. That doesn't happen in Israel. Now, I'm not saying that Israel's perfect, right? Because this is the problem that we're having, right? People are being forced to concede a point where they go, "Oh, well, I'm not defending Israel. Like, Israel's not perfect. Israel has its flaws. You can criticize Israel, right? Criticizing Israel is not anti-Semitic. All of that's true. But why? Why are we even saying that? Right? It's like you've been forced to acknowledge that criticism of another country that you would have never criticized is legitimate. That's true. Criticism of Thailand is legitimate. Does anybody have criticism over the fact that in Thailand, right, like you can have sex with underage women, underage boys? Does anybody have any criticism over the fact that if you go to Thailand, like you can engage in pedophilia? You can, right? That's a very small country. It's not a threat to the United States. Nobody gives a fuck about it. But you do it anyway. Like, nobody brings that up in regular conversation. Like, we have laws in place. The 2003 act that Bill Clinton put in, where it was like a sex tourism, where American citizens can't go over to Thailand and engage in pedophilia because so many people were doing it. You know what the number 2 countries like in the world for sex change operations are? It's fucking Thailand. And I know you guys are going to be shocked by this. Iran. You know why Iran is number 2? Because they don't believe in homosexuality per their faith. So they go, okay, well, we'll just change your gender. Google it. Why am I the one to explain this to you? Why am I sitting here trying to common sense everybody on the internet? Because I'm getting tired of it. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to do it until the end of time if I have to. I'm just saying, like, why? This is not hard to figure out, right? So my question is, why am I telling you 2 plus 2 equals 4? Because the majority of people that you follow online are not telling you the truth based off of facts, based off of research, based off of what is, right? When they're talking about foreign policy, when they're talking about, whatever the political environment is, they're telling you either one of 2 ways, right? They're saying, I heard it from this person who lied, and they're repeating it, or they're lying to you on purpose because they have an agenda. They're being told to tell you these things. Like, I can tell you personally that I have been approached, right, by people that have wanted me to say certain things that I knew were not true, and I have told those people to fuck off, right? Like, I've talked about it a couple of times. I've been very open about it. And they're very careful about it, right? Where it's like, they don't say it, but they say it. And I think that there are a lot of people who, if you were to offer, if you were to offer them, let's say, $500, right, to repeat this totally legitimate article from a real journalist, right, from Al Jazeera or something like that, they might convince themselves that they're telling you the truth, right? They might say, like, oh my God, did you know that blah 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 blah, right? But it doesn't work on me, right? Because I actually know. Xavier just recently, he said that he was uninvited from the guitar trip because he refused to lie because he already knew the truth. But one of his besties, Emily Saves America, she did not. Like, she said all the things. And I don't see him, posting up bestie pictures with her. But you see people like Megyn Kelly, you see people like Tucker Carlson, you see people like, I mean, you can go with the obvious ones: Myron Gaines, Dan Bilzerian, Jake Shields. who have been pushing this sort of like, like Muslims aren't bad. I'm like, yeah, of course I am. It's not even a question, right? But Islam is. So I want to know, and I think we all want to know, right? Like, who is telling you what they actually believe, and who is being paid by some, I'm not saying Qatar, Iran, Pakistan, but somebody's paying these people to say certain things. Like, do you really believe that everybody that was, parroting the vaccine is safe and effective actually believed it? Or do you think that they were actually being paid by like some type of George Soros type? Like, if you believe that they were being paid by some George Soros type, then you have to believe that there's also an organization that's trying to convince you that radical Islam is not a threat. It is. It's always going to be a threat. And, you know, I just took 4 days off the internet, and I'm not going to lie to you, it's hard to get back on. It's like, it's very difficult to walk away from this. Like, I didn't do it like on purpose. I was sick. It's very difficult to continue this fight because you feel like you're yelling at a wall, right? Like, you feel like nobody's listening. You feel like the people that are pushing that message have a much louder voice than you, right? But then you have to take a step back and you have to go, okay, this is probably the exact same mentality that the people had in 1920s Germany when, the National Socialist German Workers' Party was talking about how the French are the problem. And if you do that, and if you understand that, and you realize that you have to keep talking, you keep talking. Like, that's really what you have to do. So I'm not special. I'm not fucking somebody that actually, knows shit. I'm just somebody that's unafraid about what's gonna happen if I don't shut up. Like, I'm the motherfucker that just goes, hey, fuck you, right? Oh, you want me to shut up? Fuck you. I get attacked constantly. People lie, smear, slander. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. Because they don't do that to people who aren't on the right track. So, I know that was that was like a 30-minute fucking monologue, but I think that it needed to be said. So, let's get back into this. All right. Okay. So I apparently I started a shitstorm with that one. I mean, I'm sure somebody else would have done it, but all I did was circle his fucking what his sweater meant. And apparently apparently he's kind of like spinning out about it. Are we still talking about that? Really? 4 days later? Tucker Carlson is carrying water for Islam. Plain and simple. Yep. Let's see what this is.
Considered to be the greatest threat to America. And they did put radical Islam at number one. I'm wondering where you think those sentiments are coming from. I mean, I've heard you say before that this is an op. And
Okay, let's pause this because I already know what he's gonna say. So Tucker Carlson is saying that the hate for Muslims is a classic Israeli government psyop meant to propagandize Americans to believe that Israel's enemy are their own. Let's just run the numbers and see if that holds water. Okay, perplexity. Okay, so we got to go. How many Muslims are there? Right? How many Muslims are in the world? 2 billion. Okay. So, 2 billion Muslims out of, I mean, what's the global population? 8. So that's, I mean, like 20% ish, 25%. Okay. How many Israelis? Because Tucker would never say Jews, right? How many Israelis? How many Israelis are in the world? I think it's like 9 million. Yeah, 9 million. Okay. So 9 million. What is it? 8 billion. Okay. What percentage of 8 billion? I think it's 9, but let's go on the low end. Is 9 million. So that's 0.1125. Okay. So we have 25% versus 0.1125%. And Tucker thinks that 0.1125% of the world can convince the entire world that 25% of the world is apparently not the problem. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, how many terrorist attacks has Islam enacted in 50 years? This is 50 years. This is saying 300,000 to 400,000 deaths, 66,872 Islamist terrorist attacks between 1979 and April of 2024. Okay. So 250,000 deaths. Higher possible estimate. 300,000 to 400,000. Okay. How many Israeli terror attacks in the same time period? Okay. All right. Global terrorism database. Okay, terrorist classified incident. There is no single agreed upon global statistic for how many Israeli attacks. Okay, so global terrorism database. Global Terrorism Database, Israeli, 1970 onward, and it has. Yeah, you can't even find them. Okay, let's try this. It's weird, right? Because they're probably going to tell you that Israel controls the AI, and that's why you can't find them. But in reality, you can't find them because they kind of don't exist, right? There's been about 50 in the past 50 years, right? And each and every one of them can be, attributed to a counteroffensive. There's one that was like, like a church that was bombed, and absolutely, like, that was a Israeli terrorist, 100%. There's one in Florida that was two people were killed, not considered a terrorist attack. But what I'm saying is you have 66,872 for one ideology, and you have less than 50 for one country. So when I see Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Owen Schroyer, um, who else? Fucking Nick Fuentes, Dave Smith, all these people trying to say that there's really no problem here. I'm like, well, what what did the statistics say? Right? Because I mean, like, this is a true fact, right? The black population in America is 12%, but it contributes to over 50% of the crime. Right? That's a fact. Right? That does not mean all black people bad. Right? That means that that population contributes to that amount of crime. So you have to take that into account. So what we have is we have 66,872 global terrorist events recorded under the global terrorism database for one ideology. An ideology that's expanded, an ideology that has taken over a lot of Western countries in Europe, and they're responsible for a genocide currently going on in Nigeria, the Sudan, Yemen, Syria, and everybody's like, no, no, no. It's that one tiny little dot in the Middle East with a population of 9 million people, a secular nation, a democracy that doesn't have any, radical ideology, that doesn't really have any statistical terrorist ties. So, why are we hearing this from our influencers? It's interesting. And you hear this from Andrew Tate, Russell Brand, Candace Owens. You hear it from a lot of the same people, the people that are in the same circle. And it's like, I mean, hey guys, like, look, hey, you know what? If you're right, cool. If you're right, you're right. But just saying things, it doesn't actually mean anything, right? Like if you just say it's not Islam, it's Zionist, right? If you just say that, it doesn't mean shit. Right? Like, you have to show me. Like, what are your statistics? What are your sources? Where is your evidence? Charlie Kirk said, Islam is the sword the left is using to slit the throat of America. Correct. Let's hear this.
wasn't for that, we move on from things so fast.
Who's moving on from this? There's an entire investigation.
Everybody's moved on from the investigation. What are you talking about?
Nobody's moved on. So
Not
don't
a
make
single-
dumb comments like everybody's moved on.
The only
Who's
reason we're
moved
still
on?
talking about is because Candace is asking questions. Like, what's the difference between asking questions and attacking? I think there's a big difference. I'm thankful that Candace is still actively asking questions because there's a ton of, like, an endless supply of weird things that haven't been answered.
Fair enough. You should ask questions. By the way, why isn't Candace in any of these events? Why doesn't she show up?
Because she's asking difficult questions about the people that are running the
So you can't show
events.
up?
I don't think they want her to show up.
So to me, that's a non-starter. Candace, quote-unquote, friend of Charlie Kirk, friend of the organization. Now she's an enemy?
Yeah, I've already seen this. So Candace, apparently, all right, I'm gonna have this guy on next week, and it's gonna be great. But look, you're being gaslit into thinking that you should feel bad when you call people out who are asking stupid questions, right? Because what they're saying is they're going, oh my God, you're getting really mad at me for asking questions. Like, I'm just innocently asking questions. And what you should do is you should call the people that are asking stupid questions retarded, and you should, like, tell them that they're being very misleading and they're trying to push a narrative by asking questions. But what happens is, like the dickhead that was on the PBD podcast, he's like, the only reason anybody is still talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination is because Candace owns, right? Like she's responsible for anybody who has any curiosity, right? Because if she wasn't asking questions, we would just believe the Fed narrative. No, that's not true at all, because we had Brian Koberger, we had O.J. Simpson, we had the Luigi Mangione, we have fucking the other guy, the one that killed his wife and kid, right? Like we just pay attention and then we wait until the trial. That's what happens in any normal situation. But if somebody were to interject and say, I'm going to ask a bunch of retarded, ridiculous questions during this whole process, even though I have no information, just like you, I have no information because no information has been provided. I'm going to make up a bunch of theories and I'm going to frame them as questions. You can make the argument that the only reason people are still talking about it is because I have overtaken the narrative, right? Which is kind of true, right? The only reason people are talking about Candace Owens' narrative is because Candace Owens, right? But if, let's say, Candace Owens didn't do everything that she's doing and Charlie Kirk was assassinated a few months ago, we would just be waiting. Like, we would just be waiting for more information, right? And like, do you trust that information? You don't have to, right? You don't. You absolutely do not, right? But if I were to say, in the Brian Koberger case, right? If I were to say, Brian Koberger didn't kill those 5 college kids, right? Because he didn't say anything. He never admitted to it. I mean, the guy clearly is being framed. This is clearly Fed slop. Nobody ever confirmed anything. I mean, the DNA on the knife, how do we know that's real? If I were to do what Candace did, and I were to try to like drag that out, right? I could get a lot of views, I could get a lot of likes, but it wouldn't change the fact that the evidence is overwhelming that Brian Koberger killed those 4 college students because he's a crazy person. Just like the evidence is pointing to Tyler Robinson was a mentally disturbed radical leftist that hated Charlie Kirk. Now, even asking, did Tyler Robinson really do it, means that what Candace Owens is doing is working, right? It's just like with Alex Jones, Sandy Hook. It's like there are still people out there that are like, well, I don't know if Sandy Hook was like 100% legit. It's like, why? It's like, because Alex Jones said it, or because there's actual evidence that points to some type of, disparity in the evidence. And that's the problem. And like, that's the problem. And it's the same people that are constantly pushing narratives that get you paranoid, that get you to like question everything, are also the same ones that are telling you to question radical Islam. So I think that that's relevant. I think that Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, I think that Dave Smith, Jake Shields, Dan Blazarian, I think that these people are all pushing a narrative for a specific reason. And I'm not just asking questions. I saw something that popped up about Jack Brassovic, like holding up a rosary, and I was like, all right. I mean, people are losing their shit over that. It's kind of weird. Candace Owens will get the Alex Jones treatment once the trial is over and the furry dude is convicted. So I think you're right. I think that Candace Owens will be sued. There's somebody in the chat that's like, yeah, Candace Owens will be sued and she'll lose and she'll appeal and appeal and appeal and appeal. And I think that she's banking on her husband to get her out of that. I don't think that's gonna work. I think that Candace Owens is fucked. All right. Anyway, let's move on to the news. Kennedy Center president demands $1 million from musician who canceled Christmas Eve show. Okay, this is funny. President of the Kennedy Center has demanded $1 million in damages. Who's the fucking musician? Musician's sudden decision to cancel Christmas Eve when the White House announced that Donald Trump's name would be on the facility. Okay. Rich Grinnell wrote to... Oh, Chuck Red. Really? You're gonna try to sue Chuck Red? Never heard of him. Red did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The drummer and vibraphone player, Red, has presided over the holiday jazz jams at the Kennedy Center since 2006. Okay. So when I saw the name change on the Kennedy Center website, and then hours later on the building, I chose to cancel our concert. One of the many reasons that it was very sad to have had to cancel. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1993. So people are literally canceling events now because... And by the way, the Kennedy Center was the one that put Trump's name on the building. It wasn't Trump. That's pretty funny, though. Zelensky to hold talks with European leaders amid fresh strikes on Kyiv. All right, a third of Kyiv is without heating after Russian drone and missile barrage on the Ukrainian capital cut off power supplies, leaving hundreds of thousands of people facing freezing temperatures. Moscow had used nearly 500 drones and 40 missiles, including ballistic missiles in the overnight attack. The primary target is Kyiv, energy facilities. Okay, so basically this war is just still going on. All right, well, here's the deal. They both need to fucking come to the table. I'm done talking about this. It's a stupid war by two dictators who are both stubborn. One of them doesn't want to relinquish power. The other one wants to expand his power, and they're both assholes. All right. Travis Kelce. All right. Who cares about Travis Kelce? All right. Nobody cares about Travis Kelce. These mudslides were fucking crazy in California. I don't understand why people talk about how California is the greatest place to live, because every time I open the news, like every couple of months, it's either a wildfire, a flood, a drought, a brownout, a blackout, or a mudslide, or like a forest fire or something else. It's like, hey, just don't live there. Like, oh, but you can go skiing, and you can go surfing in the same day. I don't care. Nobody does that. You're retarded. All right. Anyway, I went to school with somebody from Sandy Hook. What Alex Jones did to those families, having people show up to the houses in the cemetery, calling people liars, actors was disgusting. Well, this is what people don't understand, right? So somebody in the chat, all right, is like, I think that Alex Jones's punishment was too severe. I can be 100% confident in saying that. I think that the justice system was weaponized against him to make an example out of him because of what he did. I can also say what he did was illegal and wrong, and he should have been punished for it. But somebody just brought up a really good point in the chat, right? Like, when Alex Jones said that Sandy Hook was a hoax, his followers are crazy people who harassed the families. And that's what happens with Candace Owens. That's what happens with Ian Carroll. That's what happens with, well, literally anybody. I mean, like, you guys know what happened to me. Like, these people have smeared me and slandered me so much where they've got Grok to say that I was like a pedophile or some shit. People really like can try to like harm me because of that. And that's why it's like we really have to figure out a way to like put a, I mean, like, I don't want to like do like anti-free speech shit. I'm just saying, like, I think the only way to fix this is civil lawsuits against people who lie intentionally and weaponize their audience against other people. But the problem is everybody just says free speech. Like, they're just like, oh, free speech. And it's like, well, it's not, right? Like, slander, defamation, libel, it's not free speech. But then they go, oh, well, I mean, I didn't know. Like, I just read it. I thought it was true. So there has to be something done, but I don't know exactly what it is because I don't want to get to a point where people are afraid to report on something that they think is true. But I want people to think twice about when they report something just for clicks. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that the only way to fix that problem is for private citizens to sue other private citizens for lying and and hope for the best. But it costs a lot of money, and then people are usually, they just hide behind free speech. So we'll see. All right, boys and girls. Well, I wanted to get an hour in. We got 2 more hours to go. We got 3 days to hit the quota for the creator program for Rumble. We're going to do it. I'm going to be here Monday, Tuesday, and then I'm back to work. And then we're going to bring the show back to our regularly scheduled program. We'll see what happens. All right. We will see you. Actually, maybe Monday is definitely Monday. We'll see you for Monday. The daily breakdown, it's going to be Cyber Monday. We're going to do just social media, which is going to be good because I'll have time to catch up.